And on the flip side, what was kind of your like toughest moments?
The toughest moment would have been getting injured at Old Trafford against Manchester United. I was at the absolute peak of my career and heading to the next level as a player, and I was playing against Manchester United, who I'd supported as a kid. That was my family's club. My first time playing at Old Trafford. We're 0-0 in the 81st minute. I felt like I was playing an incredible game, which was echoed by Sir Alex Ferguson after the match. He talked about saying that injury was an unfortunate moment in the game because he felt like I was the best player
Oh,
on the field, which my dad, who had passed away at the time, he would have been rolling over in his grave, like
wow.
knowing that Sir Alex Ferguson had talked about me in that way playing at Old Trafford. But yeah, I was through in on goal and the ball kind of skipped away from a pass. I challenged for a 50-50 that I had every right to win. I was absolutely destroyed in a tackle by Johnny Evans. I fractured my knee and I ended up chipping off a bone in the back, which I didn't realize. I knew it was bad at the time, but I didn't know it was that bad because you're in this state of shock. And it wasn't until I had this surgery. So I went down to the hospital the next day because I had an open fracture in my knee. And I wake up and the surgeon was like, hey, this was worse than we thought. I had to put a pin in your knee and you're probably going to be out for about a year. And I just remember in that moment, my stomach sank and I couldn't believe it. I was in a state of shock because it was like, I felt invincible before that. You know, it was playing incredible soccer. I was playing in the Premier League. I just played in a World Cup. It felt honestly like nothing could go wrong. And then I talk to a lot of young players about this now because you have to prepare for sometimes and be working towards things that you won't ever expect, and your career could end in a flash. And essentially mine did. I got back to playing, and I represented the national team again, and I played a couple more Premier League games, but I was never myself. And then it was an ACL on the other knee and another ACL and
Right.
another ACL. So I tore my ACL 4 more times on the other knee after that injury, and that just became kind of the downward spiral. So that's something I look back on that was definitely the biggest disappointment in my career, and it was difficult, but I've always chose to put a positive spin on that after.
What those setbacks did you? Is there's one thing that you learned from that bad experiences?
Yeah, I had to learn, and I'm typically an optimistic person.
I can tell.
Yeah, but in those moments, it was hard. And I went through, I guess, in retrospect, a lot of depression and moments of why me and really down moments. And that's when I relied on my support system and my fiance, who's now my wife of 10 years, and my brother, my family, my teammates, the fans, all of those people. I found ways to draw on the positives for, and I always viewed it as a challenge. I love challenges. I'm a competitor, and I loved every person that would say you're never going to make it back and you can't do that. And I would look them straight in the eyes and say, I'm going to be back. I'm going to recover from this injury, and I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to get back to my best. So I would allow myself about 2 weeks of feeling sorry for myself and damn, this sucks,
Right.
and then I would flip into setting small goals for recovery, and being able to get the muscle back in my leg was boom, that was one. And then I'm walking again, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm on to that next phase of the recovery. And then when I would start to be back, I would take really inspiration from being, getting compliments and beating timelines. And if everybody
Right.
says you're going to be out for 6 months, I'd be out for 4 months. And it ended up sometimes working against me, in that I tried to come back from an ACL after 5.5 months, which was absolutely insane. And then I tore my ACL in the first game back. And, it's just
Yeah.
that competitive internal desire to be on the field. And you feel the reality is, I don't know if you felt this or if you ever had like a longer injury, but you feel pressure from your coaches to be back on the field.
1,000%.
And I'm not blaming them because it's the reality of the business, but I should never have played my first reserve game back at 5.5 months on an ACL. I should have been protected from myself, because the athlete always wants to say yes, and we always want to play. And I felt good, but the reality is I wasn't good. And if somebody had really like looked at my situation, they would have said, Stu, you're in like a lot of danger if you play in this game, even though I'm like, no, I'm going to play.
And
I'm going to
usually,
play.
like ACLs, instead of 5.5 months, are like 9 months.
Well,
right?
now they say 9 months to a year,
Yeah.
which I should have done. And I probably would have played, because now my last ACL surgery was over 10 months ago. 10 years ago. And I'm not obviously playing at the same level now, but I still play, and I play tennis, and I'm pretty active. But yeah.
Yeah. No. And after these, all these injuries, then you decide, okay, now it's time. I'm done with it. I've been through a transition. You've been through a transition. How was that? Going from I'm at the best of the best, doing what I do, to I don't know what I'm gonna do. You kind of lose your identity because people know you because you are a soccer player, not because you're gonna be the next analyst or commentator. How was your transition, and did you know already that you wanted to be a sports analyst?
Yeah, so I think the transition is never easy for any athlete. You've lived it, right? You go through this period of trying to recreate a new identity, because the identity we've known before was as a professional soccer player. It's always been a soccer player. Even when I was a young kid, I identified as a soccer player because that was what gave me life and energy. And I was good in high school, so then I became the soccer player of the high school. And then when you get to college, you're a soccer player in college, and then you're a professional soccer player, and then that's what people recognize you as. You get attention because of it. You're on TV every week. You're doing interviews. There's like a real buzz that comes with doing that because it's a really unique profession. So I think the benefit I had of finding my second career is that I unfortunately had the injuries, but then fortunately, because I had the injuries, I was doing my rehab here in the United States in LA, and I knew I was out for 8 months on my second ACL, and I said to myself, I'm going to take a lot more time on this recovery if I want to have any chance of playing again. I give Bolton a lot of credit because I was still under contract, and they allowed me to come back here and rehab. But I also had this like gut feeling deep down that this was probably getting towards the end for me. And even if I got back, how long would I have left? I was getting close to 30 years old. So I started to like think about a second career. I had a call from who's now a really good friend of mine. I actually talked to him on the phone on the way over here this morning. He was a producer in TV. Shaw Brown is his name. He texted me like seconds after I tore my ACL in the Gold Cup final and said like, "Hey, would you be interested in TV?" And I was like, "Not now, dude. I just tore my ACL.
I'm already on my way to the hospital, my friend.
I'm on my way for surgery." I said, "But yes, I'm like interested in that." And he said, "Well, I think you'd be good at it. I've seen you do interviews on TV before, so call me whenever you get a chance." And so we talked in the months after. And so he kind of put wheels into motion of me getting an opportunity with NBC. And so while I was rehabbing on the weekends, I would fly up to my first ever game was in San Jose. I did like some broadcast training, and then I would fly on the weekends to do games. I would fly to ESPN at different times. And then I got some opportunities with Fox, so that when I went back to try to play one more time, I tore my ACL again. And then that was kind of the moment where I said, "Stu, what are you doing, man?" And I didn't want to ever remember myself as a version of myself that I wasn't like proud of, or I knew that I was as a player. Like I didn't want to come back playing super low level league and grinding it out, having played at like the highest level. And at a stage of my life where I'm like, it didn't feel worth it to me, and it didn't feel like something that would be fun and that I would enjoy anymore. And so I really hit that hard transition to TV at that point, and instantly found that it was something that I don't think anything will ever recreate in my life what soccer was as a player. But this, I will say, has like given me that feeling of, I get that like the butterflies in the stomach before a big broadcast. I'm still close enough to a game that has given me so much. And then I still get to travel to some of these biggest events, biggest games. And I do truly, like when I'm doing my work in my preparation and then on camera, like it's something I love. So I feel fortunate that I kind of stumbled into something so quickly that allowed me to transition maybe a little bit easier than I know some of my teammates have gone through.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.